This episode of Infiltrate Radio Podcast is brought to you by our amazing sponsors. Podbean is an easy and powerful way to start a podcast. Everything you need for a successful podcast. No difficult technology to learn. For our listeners only, go to podbean.com/infiltrate radio and get your first month of podcast hosting absolutely free. Again, that link is podbean.com/infiltrate radio. The show is also brought to you by Akioka Pet Boutique. Use the link posted on our Facebook page with the link to the show and use code InfiltrateRadio25 at checkout, and you save 25% on any purchase from Akioka Pet Boutique. All your pet supplies, toys, etc. So again, go to the link on our Facebook page, click on it, and use code InfiltrateRadio25 at checkout and save 25% on absolutely any purchase. In addition, we'll post the links to any products we talk about during the show, such as the drinks we're enjoying or any other items we mentioned. So if you really want to help us out and support the show and keep us going, click on any of those links we post, and the show gets a portion of the purchases that you make. So you get drinks, you get products, you help to keep the show going, and we get to not be living out on the street. So again, just click on any of the links in on any of our posts that typically go to Amazon or other affiliates. So thank you guys for all your support, and here's another episode. Infiltrate Radio. All right, so you're listening to Infiltrate Radio, and this is number 52, episode number 52. I'm Patrick Joanne.
And I'm Bizzle Jans.
And on the show today, we have the one, the only Mr. Matt
Guarnere. That's it. Guarnere.
I was trying really hard not to fuck it up, and then I figured I'd just wait long enough and yell.
Well, we didn't
really
do the
hard to embarrass yourself.
We didn't do the phonetically spelled cue card. We should have done that.
Right.
That's okay.
Right, but thanks for coming on the show, man. I appreciate it.
It's fun. I've been looking forward to it. We've known each other a while.
So we'll start out how we usually do with the drinks that we're drinking on the show, and kind of that's how we get paid. So for anyone listening to the show, we're going to post links on any of the Facebook and Instagram and all the social media posts. And if you click on those links and buy the products that we talk about, whether it be drinks or whatever else on the show that we put links to, we get a little bit of pocket change, and I don't have to sell my body on the street corner for lemons.
At least not without wanting to do it, because we all know you want to sell your body out there.
Right. It's not for a lack of desire to, but I don't need to. So it's always nice to do something you love without having to do it. You know what I mean? So anyway, as usual, we start with the guest. So what are you drinking today, Matt? What do you got there?
I don't know. Do we want to give these guys props? This is
Sure.
a kind of a Wegmans product here. So although this is in, I have to say this company, we can promote them all we want, but they are long since out of business. Do you see this here?
Yes.
This is an MXR mug from many, many moons ago. So this is a tiny little cup that I use. This is an electronics company that evolved into Alesis and Mackie, and those two companies used to be this company. They've made some very, very famous guitar effects and things like that. But that's not what I'm drinking. I'm drinking inside here. It's a double espresso with cream. And it's just, I don't know if I invented it, but I don't know anyone else that's ever made this for me. I call it a Metspresso. But it is Wegmans brand espresso, whole bean, and I find it to be just as good as any of the really pricey gourmets.
Now, do you heat up the cream, or is it?
So I've tried it both ways, and I find that the cream has to be fresh, of course.
All right, straight from the cow.
I find from the cow into the carton I find that it's kind of better if you leave it. It shouldn't be ice cold, but just a little bit, room temperature, and so you don't end up having a hot Metspresso, but it's a warm Metspresso.
All right, and I didn't know that about that. So what happened? Alesis
was producing a lot of hardware audio devices, recording devices, things for live sound reinforcement, effects, reverbs, all that kind of stuff. They splintered off into two companies. MXR is a Rochester-born company, a famous company. In fact,
shit.
I mean, there's so many things that they've done, but like the famous phaser sound that Eddie Van Halen's recorded on so many of those classic Van Halen albums was an MXR Phase 90 that was produced right here in the city.
Interesting.
Yeah, and ART, I forgot to mention, Applied Research and Technology is still going strong. They were another faction of what used to be MXR. A lot of the people that used to work at ART, at MXR, are still at ART.
Yeah,
So,
I knew of MXR. I didn't know it was actually a Rochester-based.
Yes, sir. Driving Park. Driving Park. They had a big warehouse there. I still know some of the guys there. A lot of them are still around, and they can tell you stories you should have them on the show.
I should. Yeah, we should. We're always looking for people. Can you tour their facility at all?
So, I suppose if you reached out to the right person at ART, you might be able to see something. Yeah, they've farmed out a lot of their manufacturing to China now. But I briefly worked at ART in the early 90s when I was in my early 20s, just kind of getting started, and they were still doing a lot of their own assembly line manufacturing. But ART was for the bulk of their run, they were all local.
That's interesting. Yeah, if you have contacts with them, hook it up. We'll
there's probably a couple guys that
I'd
might be interested in talking to you. Yeah,
especially because Eddie died. Last year now? I was going to say this year, but was
months
it this year?
ago? I was late last year.
Yeah, late last year. So, all right, Biz. So
he's one of the. I mean, there are thousands of people that have used MXR products, but I'm lucky enough to have this little mug here. It's just a little bit smaller than the average coffee mug because I couldn't use an espresso cup because you got to fill it up beyond that, and I don't like to use a full size mug because then you just don't feel like you have very much in there. So it's just right.
You feel like you're getting gypped on it on your.
Well, I don't know. Oh, I warm the mug first too. The transference of heat. It helps us preserve the taste a little bit better.
I could tell you're an engineer, whether it be sound engineer, because everything has an exact way of doing it.
Hey, part of the reason you see me at the Love and Cup as frequently as you do is because the coffee is really good there.
Yeah, they do have good coffee. I've been getting espressos with my my lack of whiskey drinking lately, so I've been indulging in their espressos and their teas and stuff.
And to wrap up, here's another guy we can plug this. We plugged Wegmans. They don't really need us.
Yeah.
But the Canal Town Coffee is a local coffee roaster and a brick and mortar cafe as well. He's on the corner of East Avenue and Whitten Road, right across from Wegmans. And Peter there usually provides us with our decaf and non-decaf blend that we drink. It's called Rochester's Blend.
Yeah, and so Love and Cup, just so people listening know what that is, it's a kind of a music venue, food place, because we've got people across the country and in Europe and stuff that listen too, so they may not know Love and Cup.
Loveandcup.com.
Unless it's become internationally renowned at this point.
People talk.
It's possible. It's very possible. But I'll plug those guys too. So I'll hook a link up in our social media there.
That would be really nice. Yeah.
So
like that.
Real quick, what are you drinking? What do you got?
I decided to go with this is a Hillsburg strawberry flavor malt beverage.
Another one of those fake beers, non-alcoholic beers.
Yeah, pretty much. Strawberry flavor, though. This one's a twist cap, so I won't make a fool of myself opening it. And
is it any good or no?
I haven't tried it yet. I'm about to crack it now and see what we got. Hopefully it's not going to spray all over me because that would be mighty inconvenient here.
Yeah, with your new high def camera. So Biz is following suit with me. So let us know how you feel about his new look over there.
It tastes very much. Yeah, it tastes very much like imagine you had a very weak strawberry like Smartie and you crushed it up and threw it in like I don't know, like LaCroix, whatever the drink of filmmakers is. I would say it tastes very much like that sort of combination.
Huh. So would you say that's a good thing or that's a
only time will tell. Only time will tell. How about that?
All right.
What about you? What are you drinking?
So I moved. So I am going to have a little bit of a band practice after this. So I'm actually doing a classic. Let me see if I can get into focus.
Oh, the tea, the throat coat.
Yeah, I got to move it.
That's right the good stuff.
Throat coat, which I keep always in my guitar bag and stuff. And I figured I drink it here because I'm going to be speaking a lot, and then I'll be singing after this. So it's got slippery elm, whatever the fuck that is. I don't know what slippery elm is.
It's a leaf.
That's what they used to call me in high school, Matt. Slippery. But it's got some stuff in it. It tastes kind of, I don't know if I like it. It's almost like licorice-esque, but it does something nice to your throat. Like it gives you a real good coating on your throat. They used to also say that about me in high school biz.
And that also,
I'm not surprised.
That comes from Wegmans also, if I'm not mistaken.
This
man, you love you some Wegmans, don't you?
They have it. I'm just saying because I bought it for my wife.
They do have it. This is from Traditional Medicinals. So I don't know if it's I don't know if this is a Wegmans company, but
it's a company. Like they carry it.
Fair trade and all that stuff. Looks like made in California, but great stuff for anyone that's a musician, which of course it's kind of thematic to who we have on the show today, Matt. And for those listening, the reason I have Matt on the show here, or kind of how we met, I don't know if it was initially, Matt, that we met at Love and Cup.
Oh, probably it was the famous Tuesday night open mic.
Yeah. So every Tuesday, my bandmates and I, and Matt is actually the guy that runs it, and he's the audio engineer for it too. They've got an awesome sound system there. But every Tuesday, kind of like my poker night, me and my bandmates go over there, and typically we'd have a few whiskeys. We play some music and kind of have a good time.
About whiskey.
Yeah.
Songs about whiskey.
Play songs about whiskey. But
wow, shocker.
I don't watch football. I don't do any of that stuff. So that's kind of my guys' night out, so to speak. Even though there's girls there, and a lot of times my female background singer will come too. So Susan, who will hopefully be joining us again.
Hi, Susan. I haven't seen her in quite a while.
Next month or so, she's finally going to get her vaccine. So we should be back in business there soon. But very Matt runs the board there. And so we always talk every time I go out there, and I find Matt to be a very interesting character, and he's an excellent musician. And he gave me the pleasure of allowing me to listen to one of his CDs for the first time after knowing him for, I don't know, 3 or 4 years now. I've probably known you.
Yeah, several years at least.
So, and then finally I got to hear some of your music like a month ago. You gave me a CD. Yeah. Which was
because I know it was long enough. We courted long enough. I figure, you might as well. Sooner or later, you're going to find out. And also, you had invited me to come and talk with you on the show, and I just figured you might want to know about that stuff too, because it is part of the reason that I have the skill set I have, and I have the passion that I have for doing that thing that me for doing.
And I want to talk about the open mic thing too, just because I find it to be really I find it satisfying in an emotional and psychological way. It sounds deeper than one should consider an open mic, but I really do. The reason I like going to it is because of what happens on stage, specifically this open mic, just because you've got the great sound system, and you've got you who's a great sound engineer, so you've got the ability to really have people get heard in a way that it can amplify their own voice. And that,
I mean, Patrick, how many open mics are there? Open mics that are just a little speaker on a stand in a corner next to the Michelob Light. And I don't mean to interrupt you there, but it's just that this thing has been around for quite some time. It predates you, if you can believe that.
Yep.
Almost when we first opened, that was the one thing that we did consistently, and it's the kind of thing where we hold it very dear to our hearts because it's part of the roots of Love and Cup. It's the thing that just will never cancel because, whether 4 people show up or 15 people show up to sign up, we try to make it, but there's just heightened importance thing, yet at the same time we try to make everybody feel really welcome, and we want everybody to be delivered through, the house sound system, and we want to light everybody up tastefully. And I also, you didn't mention, but I've had to become sort of the silent host, from back at the board. Someone's got to sort of keep it going and get everything moving along. So I've been having more and more fun every week, especially in these life and times, which are very strange. We really need a place to go and let our hair down,
Yeah, and so, you guys have managed to kind of make it one super. I never feel like it's not safe. Like for health purposes, obviously right. An open mic can be like, it's a little iffy whether or not you want to share a mic, that sort of thing. But the way that you guys do things is like almost clinical. If I feel like I'm in a hospital sometimes.
If you smell the microphone, yes, because this is the thing, and I just let me jump in here and
smell the microphone.
Because when we decided, we did have to close down for a time, as everyone did.
Yeah. Is that like smell the glove?
In March, April.
From Spinal Tap?
So here's the thing. When we decided that it was better to have open mic rather than to not have open mic, I said, well, the first thing is we're not going to share microphones, okay? Right. And the ones we do use, we will disinfect between acts. Among everything else, I have wipes, but I, with a toothbrush, which I sterilize, right. Between every act, I do a list. We have Listerine and alcohol. I do Listerine first, then the alcohol, the alcohol first, then the Listerine swab, and then we have a little paper cover with a, it's just got this elastic band. It covers over the microphone. You don't even hear it when somebody's singing on one of those things.
Yeah.
And then after that person is through performing, that mic goes away. The next disinfected mic comes on, and as I say, I'm also wiping down other things. We just didn't want there to be any worries whatsoever, so those that come know that they're in a very safe place and that we care.
Yeah, I think that's great, and it's a big deal to show that you kind of care, because I think a lot of companies are like, oh, we care so much, and then there's no difference whatsoever,
not to slide anybody else specifically, but I've observed some things that were just inappropriate, let's say. Well, weren't exactly playing the right tune.
What's really cool about that particular venue for open mic too is I've been to open mics, like you said, where it's a speaker maybe on stage, a microphone, maybe it's taped to like a coat rack, so that it's sort of in front of you or whatever. But Love and Cup's got the full stage. It's got all the lighting, and if depending on if it's you utilize the lighting even for the open mic participants.
I try to just focus the lights on the performer.
And then the sound system too is pretty phenomenal there.
It's in stereo. It is truly.
Yeah. So that combination, and you actually have monitors too, where you can actually.
We have monitors aplenty. Yeah.
Yep.
We just, as I say, even though it's open mic, I've looked forward to it more and more, because we keep it pretty low tech, Patrick. I mean, even though we have the technology, but I just mean, we don't invite full bands to come and bring their instruments and backline. We don't even really have a pre-existing backline. We didn't want to do that kind of open mic, though it doesn't have to all be singer-songwriters, as you know very well, Patrick. We have all kinds of interesting characters coming in, telling stories, jokes, performance art. We do welcome that stuff, and it ends up being a really interesting balance and blend of things. And so, but I wanted to make sure that everybody gets the same treatment, and the simpler it is, the quicker I can get everybody on, and the longer time period the set is. And as you know, the fewer people that sign up, if it's only 4 or 5 people on the list, I'd love to hear Patrick play 4 songs.
Yeah.
We can do that sometimes.
Yeah, you have a little extra room where you can, right?
It's
so sweet.
And the reason I really like that open mic in particular, just because the quality of everything that surrounds it, right? The reason I like open mics quite a bit, even though I play full shows, I've played in a lot of places. I semi call myself a professional musician. I put out a couple of
you've been paid for it,
whatever,
You're
right?
Pro.
But I like going and performing, but I really like seeing new artists get up for the first time, especially, even if it is something that's not a polished like product, like where they're seasoned on stage. Those are great because it's entertaining in that way, right? They're an entertainer that's on stage. But what I really like, and when I was saying psychologically and emotionally, I like seeing people that have been practicing, let's say in their bedrooms or something, or in front of their friends for the last couple of months, a song or two, and they get up there and they're kind of working at they're nervous, they're trying to figure out what their voice is. I really like when people do original stuff up there.
Yeah, we love that too. That's the thing about Love and Cup, is it just in normal times too, we always were more of the pro original music venue. So that just extended right into the open mic thing. People just kind of knew that they're welcome to do that there. Yeah. And we really like, usually when a new person comes in, I try to call that out without embarrassing them.
Yeah.
But how many people have we seen really develop into something, better and better every week, and they start coming regularly because they feel comfortable.
Yeah.
I love that too.
I think that's why you're a great host too, is because you're a musician. So when you first get up on stage and you first start performing, whether it be music or anything else in a stage setting where everyone's kind of just sitting, staring and judging and waiting for you to do something up there. A lot of them are rooting for you to be good because it's going to be entertaining for them. But you do get people that are hecklers, or they're not going to pay attention to you, or things like that. And so you being a musician behind the hosting of it, I think is helpful. One, you get them a great sound, but two, you're kind of gentle with getting them up there. And even if it was something that it's like, because you do get people that'll get up on stage and just are how do I put it, like in a
ill-prepared.
Yeah, maybe ill-prepared, but also sometimes a little crazy, like
crazy.
No, they're not necessarily going to be entertainers as a profession in the future.
But look, I mean, they are welcome. By definition, it's an open mic. As I always say on the mic as a host, I always say, look, you make the show. It's never the same show twice. We never really know what it's going to be, even though some of the regulars keep returning. Everybody makes an effort to do something a little different each time.
Yeah,
I love that.
I want to have a live podcast one day from there too.
We should do that.
Either like great. Stream the musicians or something like that. We can get that going once everyone's kind of we start to get a little bit more of a crowd or whatever.
It's a precious thing though.
We should get a good live feed going and then just do it. A straight live show just from Love and Cup. A live stream. You could hear the bands. You could hear
we've been talking about that for quite some time. I mean, now isn't quite the time because it isn't a normal life, but we're so thankful to have this one. I mean, I'm down to one night a week essentially as a sound engineer. I have other things I do, but it is just a little saddening that we really can't do more than that right now while everything's cold and we're indoors. But it is what I like to call Love and Cup. And its open mic is the delicate cup of wonder. We don't dare cancel it because we know it would be such an uphill battle to get it going. And we had people calling even during the shutdown and wanting to come to it. And we're just like, this, we know this is special, but other people are telling us how special it is. We'd like to be there for them, and even if we outnumber the audience, so be it. So we're gonna do
it. And so how did you? I guess I don't know if necessarily how did you get involved with Love and Cup in particular, but obviously you were a musician before. Was your family musical? Like, was that your? My father in particular, he had another life, long before me, long before I came into the world. He was quite a talented, kind of a crooning style jazz singer. And waxed on the professional. He used to perform and get paid for that, and made a number of recordings, demo recordings, some of which were better than. Oh, hold on, just a moment. I have one right here. So I didn't even plan this, but here's an example. This is my father on a reel-to-reel tape. I've been transferring these lately. Yeah, I think that's what prompted me to want to bring you on too, because I know you've been doing some transferring during the COVID of not only reel to reel, but records and stuff too.
Yeah.
So are you're digitizing that? I'm assuming.
That's correct. This is a thing I've kind of always done, and I can't tell you the whole story exactly, but I've always been around tape machines and turntables, and not only just to use that to capture my own musical muses, but I had a recording studio for a while. People would always bring me this antique media. It was less antique when I started, because I'm probably not as young as I may look on this little tiny camera. But it's neat that I've just always had that. Someone would bring me a cassette or something, and I don't know what's on this. Can you transfer this? And then as I weaned away from doing new music production, where I was working with artists and recording in a multi-track fashion and producing demos or master recordings like I used to do for myself, I got away from that. I put my time in with my head firmly fixated in between a pair of loudspeakers. You just get to a point where okay, that's enough.
Yeah.
Why am I doing this? So, but what never left me was the fascination with other people's work. And I love when somebody brings me something, an old media form, and either they know what it is and they don't have any way to listen to it now. Because let's be honest, most people don't even have a turntable, let alone it. They certainly don't have a reel-to-reel machine. Cassette machines are all going away. VCRs are going away. So all of a sudden, I was flooded with that. That was the only kind of studio work that I was really interested in after a while. And because frankly, the work is half done, right?
Yeah.
You have to just bring. It's more work than it would seem, though, to get it playable again.
Yeah. And so one of my friends actually had brought me, Dave, right? My friend Dave Schneider.
Yeah.
Glasses.
I think I've met. Yeah.
He comes sometimes to the open mic, but he had brought me something. I guess his grandmother's sister. So is that his great aunt? I guess.
It was a small disc.
Yeah, it was a little disc or something. They had done some recording back in the day, and it looked. I have a record player. I was always into records because my dad had a big record collection. So I've got a record player, and I can plug that in digitally and all that kind of stuff, and do a similar kind of transfer of media. So he's like, hey, I got this. No one has a record player. Can you just maybe try and get this onto the computer and see if you can get it to be listenable. And I put it into the record player. I played it. While I was recording it, I wasn't listening to it. It recorded it into, I think it just took it into Logic or GarageBand or something. I forget what it was. And it was
just
like
something to convert it.
Nothing but noise. It was just.
That's because, well, above all else, it probably didn't have the right kind of needle.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll stop there. Tell me the rest of the story.
Yeah. So, there was little bits of you could sort of make out what was happening in the background, but it did take me, 2 hours just to get something on the end recording that was kind of listenable. There was so much static on it. I also don't.
So it was a 33. A 33 RPM.
It was, yeah. Yeah,
okay. Because a lot of those are 78 RPM, which your turntable probably doesn't do that.
Maybe it was 78. I don't.
Because everybody would have found it.
Yeah, no, it was. You can kind of make out what they were doing, like that they were singing and stuff, but it was definitely a challenging thing. So, but it was fun to do it. To get some old piece of media and kind of listen to this. It feels more like nowadays you're recording directly onto a computer and it's an exact kind of copy of what took place. When you listen to, I feel like old records, especially because it's such a physical media, like it's literally a needle etching grooves into a piece of plastic. It's almost as if when someone is playing an instrument or singing, it's like a physical representation on that disc of that human being that may no longer even be alive anymore.
Right. That's the aspect of it that I'll never get tired of. It's really something.
And especially when you listen to kind of like a home recording, a vinyl or a cassette, there's the moment, because a lot of times it's not professionally produced and mixed and mastered and all this sort of stuff. It's just they had a microphone, they had a means to record to like tape or to a record or whatever, and everyone was in a room and getting a kick out of recording to that medium at whatever time. I don't know. I find it very interesting. So you're getting these as like projects now? People are sending you.
Whole collections sometimes now, and it can be in any one of those formats we were talking about with reel to reel, and just in the reel to reel domain alone, there are many different kinds of formats, different tape thicknesses. I have to identify if there's nothing written on the box, which is often the case.
Right.
You're just shooting in the shadows, trying to figure out what format it is, what speed it is. There's many. I won't take off on the technicalities, but it really, just to assess what it is that you have to do before you can do the job, it can take some time. A lot of times these tapes don't play; they shed, they get sticky. The electromagnetic oxide starts to rub off on the head, so I have to do a process that it dehydrates the tape and makes the bonding agent solid again.
So you're actually doing even physical recovery on some?
Yeah. Oh yeah, all the time. It's forensics, man.
I didn't know you got that deep into it, man.
Oh yeah,
that's awesome. So for those kids listening, and maybe even Biz, because you probably know what a reel to reel is, but behind
I can show you. We can do show and tell here.
I
have all the stuff in my arm's length.
Reel to reel. What was? Let me ask you this, because the first thing that I recorded to, my dad used to go to a studio in Queens, and there's a recording, I think, where he was recording next to like REM as they were first starting out. They were in like a studio.
Everybody's got to start somewhere.
Yeah. And there's a recording of me as like a 3-year-old or whatever, talking into a microphone. But then after
every parent should record their child's development.
After that, as a kid, I had my first Sony, cassette recorder that I listened to Michael Jackson. I think you could record on that to cassette.
My wife had something like that. Yeah.
Did she?
Yeah.
But I had a Tascam 4-track. Was the first
nice.
real, when I started recording music. I think I was 13 or 14.
Cassette 4-track.
Yep, cassette 4-track. So each cassette only has 2 tracks on each side, so it records to all 4 tracks.
No. Well, they're in that situation, Patrick. If it's a 4-track, a multi-track cassette, then all 4 tracks would be used in one direction, linear.
Right. Well, that's what I was.
If you turn it over, it'll play backwards.
Yeah. Which was used. That was kind of used back in the day by some bands to play, like you hear the devil in it or whatever because they're playing it backwards.
Stairway to Heaven.
But that was part of the thing. Is like there was such constraints on the medium that you needed to do crazy shit to get like different sounds to come out and different I almost miss the 4-track way of recording because it made you really think about how you were going to be laying down. You didn't just have an infinite amount of tracks.
You were constantly mixing or reduction mixing you'd take 3 tracks and reduce down to a single track, add 3 more, maybe bounce it again. And I found that to be really, really frustrating. I never actually got too serious about 4-track. The first machine I had was an 8-track, half-inch. Oh, nice. The first real machine that I had.
And I ended up finding, speaking of old media, I found a bunch of tapes that me and my older brother used to make in the basement, like we'd record music and stuff. And I ended up digitizing them and listening to a bunch of that stuff from back in the day, which I think it's on SoundCloud now somewhere. But
I get the stuff all the time. I was going to do a little show and tell.
Yeah, let's
this is actually this is as it's happening live. So earlier today, before this call, I had to get out. I don't have all of my machines, all in a lineup here in this tiny room. But I did go down and I fetched this is a tape that is a half-inch tape. Okay, we were just talking about multi-track recording onto reel. So here's another one of these reel-to-reels, right? And it is
typically the difference between the sizes of the tape, is that like the amount of tracks that are on it?
Well, it has more physical space for more linear tracks. Yeah. So, but when this came to me, you can see here, this is really normal. Like there is nothing, no indication of any kind of what is on this tape. The only thing I know is the guy that brought it to me to say, hey, I have no idea what's on this. Can you tell me? I know that it's something to do with that guy, and he knows it, but he doesn't have any recollection of what it is because there's no reference, no artifact. So the first thing I had to do, I told him, okay, I'll try to at least give you an idea what's on it. But I also don't want to just go ahead and do the whole job because he's not sure.
Is it the original Thriller Masters from Michael Jackson? Is that
those would have been half-inch too?
Right.
Yeah. But anyway, so I'll wrap this up. But I had no idea if this could have been a 2-channel stereo left-right recording or something else. He wasn't sure because they did used to master albums. He did some recording, I guess, down in Nashville or something, this guy. And so he just didn't know. So just as of a couple hours ago, I now know. I was only able to play through about 30 seconds to a minute before the oxide started shedding. Huh. but I was able to play it and record a quick sample in it. I determined that this is an 8-track half-inch tape. Okay. Well, we know it's half-inch. It's an 8-track multi-track tape. So 8 tracks in one direction, linear, and it is a project tape of some kind. I can't quite tell, but I can tell there are 8 separate things going on because the machine I played it on happened to be an 8-track machine. This could have been very same type of machine, in fact. So there's a click track on track 8. There is a bass guitar on track 1. There's, I think a keyboard on 2. Anyway, you can tell it's a production reel of some kind. So this guy didn't know that. He had no idea. So until I tell him, and I can't, I'm not going to play the whole tape. I mean, in order for me to play the whole tape, I have to put it in the cooker and make it playable. It needs to be dehydrated. So I'm going to at least tell him my findings. So I've done the sort of the free evaluation. Yeah. And then if we're going to go further, we have to talk about what I do from that point on. But it will take hours just to make this thing playable. Well, I don't have to sit there and watch it for 4 hours, but it needs to
maybe tomorrow. Let me know who it was that you think is on there. If you're not allowed to.
I mean, it's a former semi-professional musician of some kind. I've only just met him, but I'm hoping that he says, go for it, go with it. We want to see what's on there, and then I'll get to hear it. But so far, I just had to do my little eval today, and that's the way it starts with some of these things. Yeah.
Awesome.
Very cool. And then, very cool.
So is that the 8-track there behind you? That real
this is the 2-track. I've got 2 of this particular model. It's a Tascam. I have 2 different ones at the same machine, only that one's a low speed, one's a high speed. So typically the speeds, you toggle through them, they're octaves. So depending on the reel size, the era in which it was recorded, it could be 1 7/8 inches per second moving across the tape head. All cassette tapes usually run at 1 7/8 inches. It's a factor of inches. The next speed up is 3 3/4, which is double that. So that the tape moves a little bit faster, slightly better quality. Then the next one up from that is 7.5 inches per second, which is very common for broadcast and stuff. And then 15 inches per second is the professional speed. This tape is recorded at 15 inches per second. I'm pretty sure they had probably the same machine I had when they made that.
So those would be the original stems, like the original master.
Correct.
Track.
This tape was in the room with the dudes playing this music. Huh. It's pre-mixed, and that's another thing is I don't really get into production mixing anymore. I did it all, man. Right. As you have my CD. Yeah. I went a little crazy, 20 odd years ago, and got pretty good, and I was very satisfied. So that's why I did a bunch of stuff across a 20-year period, and then I decided that we'll let other people do that now. So the technology kept changing too.
What else do you? I see a couple of speaker. Is that a speaker behind you?
Yeah, this is just my smaller reference monitor here, made by Paradigm. They don't make these anymore. This is a wonderful little speaker. It's a little 2-way. Huh. I have a full range system, studio playback system that actually is kind of portable. So I typically don't set that up in here. There really isn't enough physical space. So I have a location that I'll do when I need some room to do some mastering work, or people want me to do a collage of things, let's say a best of their work. You really need to listen to that very closely, because if it's a lot of different kinds of recordings, don't even look at the meters. They're not that important. It's just you have to just follow your. So you have to have the know-how to make a lot of different things come together and work nicely and sound uniform.
I don't know why my camera keeps doing that.
What do you mean? You're right there.
Yeah, it cuts out for a minute.
Hold that.
The lens. I don't know if it's cleaning the the lens something like in between the shit.
A little scrubbing or something.
Yeah, I don't know.
You're spitting on it.
Or the sensor, like sometimes it does a sensor cleaning or something. I don't know.
Sensor.
But,
I hardly know her.
What's the weirdest thing, Matt, that you've come across? Like, was there a piece of media that you got handed that was like?
Well, I mean, I'll tell you this one. I just actually told the story. No, I mean, I don't think there's anything terribly racy.
Grassy knoll.
The coolest thing, and I got a couple of stories in the paper earlier this year, and one of them made it into the story because they're very interested in the source. So there was a woman that brought me a cassette tape, which we all know what those look like. And we don't need to show and tell.
You were in.
There were a couple that were done, mostly local press, but everything can be seen on my What's Real Limited Facebook page. After this, you can check it out. So there was a woman that brought me a cassette tape. She didn't know too much she knew roughly what was on it because her mother, who is elderly, is still alive. They were looking for this tape for a long, long time. They finally found it in a drawer. It was a cassette. And it was reported to be this woman's father just talking. They didn't know, couldn't remember what it was. It's just the mother told, her mother told her that this is your father. I don't remember really much about it, but let's find someone to transfer. So she did a search. She found me, reached out, and I said, of course, I do cassette transfers all the time. I'd be happy to. And of course I get it, and there's nothing written on it. Almost nothing. I can't even remember.
It seems like that's more typical than not.
It's very typical. I was lucky that the grandmother is still around because she knew, she had a clue. So anyway, I'm telling you, that's the setup, right? So I go through, I play this tape, and it's all speaking, it's all speech, and it's in Spanish. And I really don't speak Spanish, not terribly fluent at all. Yeah. But anyway, I still am able to do what I could do because it's audio. It's someone talking. I do my best to refine it. I ended up taking the two little reels from the cassette out because it was an old tape. It was kind of a cheaper dime store tape, if you will. And it's possible to take the reels out and put them in a much better shell to play it back because that's part of the system and that improves fidelity. So I did that. And I got the best I could out of it. And sometimes I'm listening sometimes things are recorded a little fast or a little slow. And I was able to just dial it in so that it just sounded right. It sounded natural, like a person talking. I can't remember if there was any music on it, but I was able to just get a really nice pass out of it. And I gave it back to her. And as I was dropping it off, this was pandemic time. So we met in a parking lot outside her office. She's standing outside my window. We have masks on. Right. I'm playing this on my car stereo saying, okay, so I guess this is your father. And she said, oh, that sounds wonderful. Like, I just got the best I could out of it. And I just said, and she was very, very happy. And so was I, because it was a time when nobody was hardly working at all on audio. And so I gave it to her, and I just said, hey, well, let's keep in touch. She asked me if I could do something else she wanted me to do. I said, yes, let's keep in touch. So eventually some weeks go by, and I reached out just because I wanted to see. I'm always curious, what did your mother think of this? And She said, she wrote back, and she was very excited. She said, we were really blown away by it. It turns out it was her father talking about, and this was apparently recorded. Oh, let me finish up here. He was just turning on this little portable tape recorder, and he would just talk. And apparently it was just him sharing his philosophies of life and just little observations about things. And at times on the tape, I could hear birds chirping like he was outside in a park. You could really get the sense of place from it. So it was just him discussing who he is, what he believes in, what it's about. And then she said, and we also were able to determine that, this was recorded before he moved to the United States. They came from Puerto Rico. So the tape was recorded in Puerto Rico. And she said he also, in one of his, it was like an audio journal of sorts. Right. One of the punch-ins there, he actually says the date. And it was something 1964. Huh. He had recorded this in 1964. Now, that probably won't mean much because, it's a cassette tape recorded in 1964. Cassettes didn't really exist in 1964. They had only just been patented a year or two before that in Europe. Huh. So here's the thing is, they didn't really migrate into the United States and become a thing until the mid to late 60s. So it turns out that this is probably one of the very first cassettes ever to be released in the commercial world. Not only the tape, but the recorder. He had one of the first portable tape recorders and one of the first blank cassettes that he bought at the local corner store or whatever. And he started just recording whatever he felt that day. And I just thought, and as I say, the journalist that I was talking to thought that was really interesting too. But who knew that the tape, I mean, it was kind of falling apart, but it looked like tapes that I had seen in the stores in the 1970s. So I didn't think, we had no way of knowing it was that old until he actually spoke the date.
Well, it's interesting too, because I kind of talked about it, the records, like capturing a moment in time or capturing like kind of the essence of a person, and even
the soul,
just like taking you back to a moment in history, just by listening to, or even just hearing, this is the date that this was, recorded, or when it happened. And it's even, I think that it's being done with like Facebook. Have you fooled around with Facebook memories? Have you seen Facebook memories?
I haven't. I know that there's an awful lot of family tree stuff that people are into doing, which I'm interested in very much. So, but I mean, it all starts with audio with me.
Yeah. Well, similarly, right? Because you think, like, what's the equivalent of that now? I mean, some people, I guess, are using their phone to kind of record audio, but I don't think it's the same as the way that it was in the past. I
mean, look, if you're just capturing life and times, who cares? As long as it's around 50 years, 60 years from now, it matters not. And just, I know I keep interrupting you, forgive me, but okay. I just delivered a 7-minute clip of audio to a woman that, forgive me, I don't know her age, but she's probably late 50s, early 60s. There's a piece of audio on a tape that she brought me of her gooing and guying at 9 months old.
Wow.
That her mother recorded when she was a kid that she'd never heard. I just delivered that to her.
I know there's a recording out there somewhere too of, was it Edison? Who was like an old, like one of the first real recordings.
The first recordings were cylinders.
Yeah.
I can show you one of those. I got one.
Are you talking audio or visual, Patrick?
Audio. So
I think audio predates Edison, honestly.
This is before the flat round disc. They had these things.
Have one of those.
Yeah, they're around. Bop Shop Records. They have everything. But it wasn't a fancy, acrylic one like this. But I think the rumor, not the rumor. The fact is that they were using a cylinder, and the first recording I think was done with a piece of like tinfoil wrapped around one of these things when he was just experimenting and trying to get audio captured. But it's in a movie somewhere about Edison.
Matt, have you used Clubhouse at all?
I have not.
It's a social media that's like exclusive to audio only. No posts.
That sounds like
no pictures. It's
just
too much
audio
for chat rooms.
It's too much for me. Well, it's too much to keep track of my own crazy little world here. I think I'm glad it's out there.
That's why I haven't signed up for it. I feel like it's just one more thing to confuse me and one more password to forget.
There's a Facebook group that does that with the photos, with the stories of, this is, I just got the old 8-track of Fleetwood Mac Rumors and I'm transferring it right now. Okay, you do that. It's interesting, but I don't usually respond to that.
Yeah,
stuff,
I wonder if that's kind of where our desire is, like, because we get super in depth sometimes on the show about what drives people to be entrepreneurs, what drives people to be entertainers and musicians or artists or whatever the case may be, and I think it's this natural human desire to kind of live forever or leave
in your mark.
Like
what kind of legacy you behind? How's your legacy preserved? You know.
And what's interesting about music in particular, that just coming, the reason I choose music is because it not only can be a leaving of a legacy in a way, like, all right, you've made this thing, but I think you can encapsulate in the arts, whether I think music or even film or whatever, you can encapsulate stories, and with stories you can deliver like knowledge across time. And music is so it's like it's not typically
the universal language.
Yeah, it's not
you don't need to speak
literal.
Yeah.
It's imagery that
there is music without words, we must say. There's lots of that.
Of course. But even when you consider songs and music that's like mainstream, that's not necessarily I guess in America we do it a lot less. We make the song an American version of whatever song that's popular and so on. But like I guess there's something to be said that like when you see like a Japanese man who speaks fluent Japanese, doesn't speak a lick of English, they throw on some Michael Jackson and he's he and Billie Jean and like
every word.
Yeah. You're right. Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? That's crazy to me. And I've seen the same thing with film and with TV. People can do impersonations of American actors and things like that. It's kind of something to be said that like you do draw an audience as an entertainer and as a creative, that people are kind of always like looking to see like, how are you going to entertain me? How are you going to captivate me today with your music, with your art, with your acting, with your painting, sculpting, whatever it may be?
Do you think that, so I know you said your dad was kind of a crooner and a musician. Like I'm supposing that you were there's probably a lot of music around you when you were younger, right?
Well, yeah, the thing is so I showed you one of the old reels, and he, before we were little, my brother and I have an older brother, before were even allowed to touch a tape or anything like that. I mean, you could give a kid a record, and we had their little Fisher Price turntables and stuff. So my dad had actually been able to make these acetate discs from some of his tapes. So my brother and I were able to listen to some of those on our little record player. So in other words, it's a copy of onto a disc that, you're only supposed to play, a finite amount of times, and then it starts to break down. So we had records of our father singing. And that was really the first spark for both of us. And now I still have some of those acetates, but they sound terrible. These are the tapes down here. This is the real thing. Those still play great. And but it was always a fascination of, how do we do that? How do we make music? My brother and I always wanted to be somehow music makers of some kind, whether we were going to be disc jockeys or who knew if we even had any talent at all. But at least we knew our dad could sing, and eventually that trickled into our development. And so we were able to do, both my brother and I have done all that stuff in production with music. And I mean, I've taken it a little further with archiving, and I owned a studio for a while that was producing music. He didn't really want to do that. He was just a music maker and still is. And but it was definitely, the germ was there with Daddy-O having some pretty cool tracks.
Right. Well, I grew up in a very similar thing. So my dad was in a band all the time, and there was just constantly music around. And it almost became, because I learned how to play an instrument, and then my older brother also played an instrument. So when I've said this on the show before, when we get together, we don't even really talk that much. We both grab guitars, and it's kind of just
whip out a guitar and just start vibing. Yeah, you have brought that up before.
That's family. Family.
Is your brother younger or older, Pat?
Get-togethers are like that. I have an older brother, and then I have a younger brother.
Which is the one you jam with?
My older brother. So he's about 3 years older than me. So much.
So you're lucky. Player. You're lucky, because my brother and I, it's kind of funny, but my brother is the older one by a few years, and he was kind of always the alpha. He liked to be the sort of the director of everything we did. So I wasn't allowed to sing. I would get the look. Every time I tried it, I wasn't really good enough.
My older brother was, started playing guitar. My dad is a guitar player, so he started playing guitar, and he got really technical into, like, he would learn Eddie Van Halen songs, solos by ear.
No easy feat.
I know a couple jerks that can do that.
Yeah, lots.
We hate them.
Super, because
those guys.
We grew up in the 80s, and the hair metal bands, and like Van Halen, and like those guitar players were just shredders, technically.
Well, shredders with heart and with feel, and I mean that's why we're still talking about Eddie Van Halen. Yeah, because there was something much deeper with him.
Yeah, and that technical aspect he really latched onto, and would do sweep picking, all the stuff that Eddie Van Halen was kind of coming up with at that time. He was
invented a lot of it.
And the good thing was that I couldn't play guitar, Matt, and so at that time anyway. And so what I ended up doing was learning a lot of just the basic, open chords, so I could play rhythm. And all right, I'm not as good a guitar player as him, so let me sing and write lyrics. I used to write a lot. So let me write lyrics. So I became kind of more of a songwriter just because he was the lead player. He would come up with, melodies that were just, I couldn't do it technically.
In the pop world, Patrick, it really isn't a song until there's a lyric and a melody. Right. That's really, you helped him complete the art form.
And so the reason I bring that up is because kind of similarly, your style of music that I've been now recently privy to with your CDs, and you sent me some videos too. I don't know if you want me to share those with our
we can, all that stuff is public
post, but it reminds me a lot of like, I want to say like a mix between Pink Floyd and Faith No More, and I don't want to say not Dream Theater, but like, what's the name of the guy, really high pitched voice? Why can't I think of the name of the band?
Rush from Jersey Boys.
Rush, yes, Rush.
Oh, yeah, Rush. Oh yeah, okay. Rush was a huge influence. Yeah.
And speaking of musicians, Greg is. Greg.
Hi, Greg.
I don't know if he'll be in focus if he pops his face into the.
Speaking of musicians, here's Tom Sawyer.
All right, man.
But
my band used to play Tom Sawyer, actually.
Were they those kind of bands were big influences for you? Like what did you?
Well, some of them. First of all, I used to love, and I still love, whenever anybody, comes up with a laundry list of sounds like this to me. I love that because it's always different, and to me, that because I've always gotten a kind of a different. Nobody ever says always the same, you sound like such and such. It's always a different swatch, and you just gave me a different swatch. I've never heard like Faith No More and people like that. We're kind of a new one for me, but you're a slightly different generation for me.
I love that.
So, but basically what I've always said, and I still say it to this day, is that, it's once I write, record, produce, and release, it's not mine anymore. It's yours. So if you found something in there that you can identify with, I'm very satisfied with it. I feel like I've done my job. And I don't care if somebody tells me they think I sound like somebody I despise. Right. I don't care because it's yours now.
As long as I've gotten the John Mayer, like that sort of like pop, singer-songwriter person too. I'm like,
I don't get
really.
I'm a little out of touch maybe a bit with that pop genre, but anyway, I've heard your album, by the way, and it is a work of art. It is a linear story and a different kind of thing. You really I only get to hear a few songs at a time at the open mic, so it's nice to hear it just play on.
What's funny about that album too is it took so long to put it together, and then finally I had the time when all this COVID stuff happened to actually release it. And even now I'm like, I want to do this and that to it. So I'm probably going to come out with a remixed, remastered kind of version of it. But
that's what I'm waiting for, Patrick. There's a whole other. I mean, there are other albums, really full lengths, because the disc that you have, that's the one that's out there that you can actually go find, which we'll talk about that in a minute. Is really an EP. It's 4 songs, a couple of remixes. Yeah. But there's a whole other 35 or 40 songs that were fully produced that I just didn't, because I'm waiting. Just for the right time, the right way of doing it. Everything was changing so much.
Yeah.
And at least fortunately you're working at an era where at least you get something done. You could put it out right away. I couldn't do that back then.
It's changed so much. I mean, the distribution side of it from when I was younger versus now. I mean, the thought that you could get it into anywhere where someone in, you're in New York, someone in California or in Europe or wherever could download and listen to your stuff was like close to impossible to do that on your own.
It was complicated. Yeah.
Which is why
I know a lot of modern artists that are a little actually discouraged by that. They feel like, why can't I make it now? It's not even hard to get my music in front of people. Why don't people like my music?
Well, unfortunately, it's not even that they don't like it necessarily, but there's just a gluttony of everything all the time. That's the trouble.
So much consumerism and media.
I'm sorry to say it. It doesn't even have sometimes any bearing on the quality of the material, the music. It's just that, just good luck. It was hard enough to get out there with the filters. Yeah. It's part of the reason that vinyl has made a triumphant return is because you're forced to, you've made quite a big investment. If you just bought a record, you'd probably spend at least $25 record of a modern release, and you're going to want to spend a little time listening to it just because it's your hard-earned dollars, and then you've got to pay attention for 20, 22 minutes aside, or else, yeah, once again, it's a waste. It's like
that's the other thing I was going to mention before to you earlier was you were saying that like things like cassettes and VCRs, they're going away. Not only are they going away, but they're becoming, you know what I mean, like these sought after items. Even like, you know, if you go to a game store and you try to buy like a Nintendo 64, for some reason it's like $50 to $100 when I mean the newest system's only $400. How is this 35-year-old system? You know,
because that one's got parts in it that are no longer replaceable, and or you got to buy. Yeah, you got to know a guy who knows a guy,
and it's got that vibe of that vintage nostalgia. Well, you can only play that cassette you've got with this one machine here, so I'm going to charge you $80 for it, even though they used to go for $20. You know.
Well, we talked.
Don't you hate that?
I think we talked about the commoditization of media nowadays. I think on the last show, maybe.
I think it's every single episode we've ever had. Actually,
well, it's just because there's so much of it. And it doesn't, and I think that artists can get discouraged sometimes because there's so much. It's hard for people to know what should I be listening to at any given time, and they've been kind of baited and switched sometimes. Where the friend of theirs or something, hey, this is my music. They go and they listen to it, and it's like it's not really great. And so the likelihood of them going and listening to someone else, goes down a little bit as that happens. Just because
I'm the opposite. I'm like a weird super fan of like people that I know. If I know you and you make music, it's like 50 times better than if I just stumbled upon myself.
Well, those kind of people are great too. You know what I mean? But there's the vast majority of people are they want to be told which song is the best right now.
Yeah. Well, put a star next to it so I know which one's the radio hit. Otherwise, I can't listen to it.
We're talking about. We're talking about the value of music and but there's a personal aspect of that. It's the connection. I know that's been taken away from us, during COVID times, but like Patrick, for example, your music became more valuable to me, or I gave it more mind and attention because you brought it to me. You come and you perform and you play these things and you're being yourself while you're delivering that concept, that idea in song. And I may not have had the same reaction to just a stream or a download, or if you handed me a CD. It's much better to know you and know what you do and know what you're about, so that I can connect better. And yeah, that will come back in time. But I just had basically all the things you're talking about right now, it's kind of the reason that, oddly 15 years ago or so, I stopped making new music. I had done enough, and it was becoming increasingly difficult to know whether or not, I just didn't know if I was connecting, and performing live was a thing, but it was not really highly encouraged to play your own material. Even 15 years ago, it was, you really had to have that other bigger push, that other thing.
Why don't you cover this song instead? Yeah.
Well, that could, if you were involved with those that were paying the bills for you, you were at the mercy of what they wanted too. So there's nothing wrong. I'm not, that's the thing. Basically, I walked away without being disgruntled, jaded per se. I'm not terribly jaded. I felt like, okay, I think this is a complete journey, and I have a lot of stuff to show for what I did, what I was inspired to do. Whereas I know I've met so many people, the people that bring me stuff like this have this unrequited dream that, that's part of the reason these things come to me. It's not really sad. It can be, but for the most part, it's just that they had a whole other life once upon a time, and it still exists here, and they want to revisit that, if only just sometimes for self-forgiveness, whatever the reason. And I can relate to all of that kind of stuff. So it all ties in, all that I did before. Yeah.
Matt, some people would say you're playing God. You're trying to make people live forever. And I'm sick of it.
Oh, I wanted to tell you something. You kind of are when you string up a reel-to-reel, right? If it's something that's recorded in like the early 70s, let's say it's a lecture, okay? Like I do these, I transfer these tapes that are lectures usually about music and brass horns and things like that. And there will be somebody talking about that. And he came over to the United States in 1901 or something like that. These people lived in the 1800s, and they're talking to me right now. I'll never ever get over it. It is eternally.
Let's do this too, because I know you quickly went through the Facebook page for that. What's the Facebook page for that side of your?
So yeah, everything archival that I do is up on I have a great Facebook business page. It's such a wonderful thing. You don't have to be a member of Facebook to go look at this thing. So it is What's Real Unlimited. And so it's 3 separate words, WHAT''S, real, REAL, unlimited. You know how to spell unlimited, right? Yeah. And there's music of mine if anybody's interested. I mean, the best way, the quickest, easiest way to listen to the CD that you have, it's on YouTube. You can just go to YouTube and put in MDG, M period, D period, G period, and then Matthew D. Guarnere, Guarnere.
Do you take unsolicited recordings? Like if people were to just send you something in the mail, like, they reach out to you via Facebook and they're like, hey, can you, transfer this digitally? Is that something that you do, or is it pretty much?
Usually it starts with a physical piece of media. Yeah. And I'll tell you what, I have pride in the fact that I really do service this area more than anything else. Yep. I'm always wary of people taking the one and only, the precious family heirloom, and sticking it in an envelope and shipping it to me. Jeez, it's not even like, I want to be responsible. It's just that, something could happen, and then I'm responsible too. Yeah. Could be responsible. So it's better off if you take a road trip. If you're more than an hour away, it's worth it.
come out to the open mic, play, and then bring the media.
I do most of what I do. There's a brick and mortar store called Bop Shop Records, which is my second home. I'm so lucky to be thoroughly involved and intertwined in the goings on at that place. It is in the town of Brighton in Rochester.
I was going to say, is that in Brighton, that stretch right next to the Westminster Apartments?
Yeah, it's in. There's a like the outdoor strip mall with the green awning.
Kosher. Yeah.
It's the one next to that one. Max's.
There's an antique and Max's Chop House.
Max's Chop House.
Okay.
Right in the middle, you'll see these, colored vinyl records in the big glass windows. Come and see me there, and we're open Thursday to Saturday now while we're doing this kind of different life thing.
Yeah, I'll have to come down there. I don't think I've been to Bop Shop. I know
you will be blown away.
It's got a great aesthetic. I've only noticed it because I'm a film guy, and it looks like your typical music shop.
We have been a set for many
I bet you will. I'm not even a little surprised.
Are they doing shows, like live streaming shows or anything?
We have been streaming shows.
Right, so maybe we'll have to talk after this too about it.
Sure, no, absolutely. We did one last Thursday with the Moho Collective, which is one of my favorite. They're very close to me personally and close to my heart musically.
Yeah, they're a great band.
BopShopRecords.com also. Let's plug. They're very. That's where people bring me a lot of the media that I work on. I could meet someone there, or I have been to people's houses to pick things up. I will drop things off if it makes sense and people are comfortable with that.
We'll talk. You let me know when you're there tomorrow, like when you're going to be there, and I'll have to stop by. I'll bring my kids too.
Please. Every kid loves. And actually, there's little things in there too. There's like a little museum almost around and about. When you walk around, you'll see they have a display case with early forms of media in there. You'll see cylinders. You'll see all kinds of the early players.
Oh, that's awesome.
Placed around the store as you walk around. So yeah,
well, we'll have to do that. So I'm going to be respectful here because Greg is sitting here. Ready to
we covered a lot. We really did it
for making him wait. So I'm gonna I'd like to have you on again at some point in the future.
Of course.
And like I said, maybe we'll talk about a live, because we've done one or two like on location podcasts too. So those are always fun. I mean, hopefully it'll be kind of busy there and we can get a lot of people out. I think that would be the opportune time to do it. But we'll talk about that, and I'll actually see you tomorrow.
Yes, you will,
Matt.
So should other people. Hey, anyone watching? I don't know how quickly this gets distributed, or this is live, right? But Love and Cup Tuesday night open mic. It's not going away. It's the one thing that will always be there in the worst of weather, in the worst of public health. We do it right. We do it safely, and it's never. Listen, Patrick, it's never that crowded, right? It's always comfortable. Tables are spaced out as we're required to do, but we just want everybody to really have a good time and pretend things are normal for a couple hours.
Right. It really does feel like before all this happened when you go in there, even though you're doing all the everyone has to wear a mask when they walk around and everything, just plexiglass behind the bar.
Right. And it's important to note, it is important. We are a restaurant first, really. Yeah. So the kitchen is open full service. It's not just a bar. You can do more than drink.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, Matt. Well, I think my camera's telling me it's time to cut off. It just shut off.
What timing?
Matt, thanks so much for being on the show. I'll see you tomorrow.
Thanks for having me.
Next week, we will. I don't know who the guest.
I believe we have a Connor next week, and then we've got some great guests lined up for all of March. Let me tell you.
I'll be tuning in.
Yeah, always feel free if you got any questions or you have any suggestions on guests or whatever, reach out. Infiltrate Radio Podcast at gmail.com. Matt, again, thank you so much for being on the show. It looks like he's about to
I'm trying to find something with my logo on it, but I can't. What's real unlimited, folks.
There you go. What's real? I'll definitely post a link to it. And again, just anything we link in the post, go ahead and purchase it. It goes to Amazon, so you're not going through some shady website that Biz likes to go to. You're going through Amazon directly, but we get a little bit of pocket change from it.
Yeah,
so.
and
I only buy stuff if it's off the deep web.
Yeah.
I was going to say too, you can still find copies of my disc on Amazon.com too.
Excellent.
I didn't mention that.
If you have those links, Matt, just send them to me too, like the but I'll try and find it anyway. But
very good.
Thank you everyone for listening. Thank you, Matt, for being on the show. Fun. I appreciate it. I'm Patrick Joanne.
And I'm Biz LaChance.
And we will talk at you guys.
Infiltrate Radio.